Greetings, YouTube. Someone today asked me if I used miniatures and did I think that miniatures were an integral part of 3rd edition as they became an integral part of 4th edition. Well, I thought I'd talk about miniatures in general. Now, way back when dinosaurs rolled dice, excuse me, I don't remember us ever using miniatures in 1st edition to any extent. I mean, we had some. In fact, I got 1st edition giant slug on my desk as a little memento. And I think, yep, I also have a thought eater, a brain with legs. These are real lead, folks. But I can't remember actually using them ever in play. Now, when I got the 2nd edition, that's when I started using miniatures. I used miniatures a lot in 2nd edition. Now, we use traditional lead miniatures, metal miniatures. Actually, this may not be lead. I'm not positive. This particular figure was played by one of the people I ran in my 2nd edition campaign, and it was Dak Silverfist. And if you look at his right fist, it actually is shiny silver. He was an interesting character. He started out as a right-handed fighter, and during a ceremony to summon a familiar for the party mage, he lost his right hand. And so he ended up getting a silver fist, hence the nickname he eventually came to be known as, and became left-handed fighter. And I actually made him suffer the penalty of being left-handed for quite a while. I think initially it was like a -4 to hit, and then over the months it would go down eventually until he had started to get positives again, because he actually was a pretty decent fighter. And he actually had a real coat of arms. I required all of my players to have coats of arms for their characters, and this was painted by an old roommate of mine who was very, very talented at painting miniatures. I can't remember how much he charged somebody to paint that. I can't remember what it was. But I also used other things for miniatures. For example, I used toy dinosaurs, which, if you look at the scale, it's a very nice scale for a medium size, or actually a large size dinosaur. Here you go. I also used cardboard miniatures like this, which were folded pieces of paper that had fronts and backs, and you just folded them up, and you can tape them if you want to. I didn't tape most of them, and that was very good for bulking out things I needed. I had a bunch of those to play with. I also used children's toys. For example, this right here was from something, maybe a kid's Happy Meal or something, I'm not sure. But if you look at the scale, it was pretty good for a large ooze of some variety that was quite handy. We had a D&D 2nd edition board game, which came with some plastic miniatures, so I used those. And again, that's a good scale for a large Scorpion Man. And I even used actual toys, and this was from a Happy Meal. This made a really great, excellent, huge insect. So we used a lot of miniatures, and I have plastic and metal, or I had a lot of metal. I don't have much metal left anymore. Lots of plastic miniatures, paper miniatures, and I use those to flesh out the field of battle. And I had 2 different boards I would use. I actually had a lap, about 2 foot by 1.5 foot drafting board, which I had put a grid on one side with a piece of cardboard. And that was a handy one. I could just pop it down, do small battles, little skirmish things, and then take it out of the way. And we also had a 4 foot by 4 foot piece of, it had been display board. On one side it was an advertisement. The other side was blank, and they were throwing it out at work. So I took it home and I put a 1-inch grid on it by hand, and it became a handy, just plop that down. I could do pretty good sized battles on a 4 foot by 4 foot space, and it was easy to store because it weighed nothing, and I could just stick it behind a door. So we used a lot of miniatures. Everybody had their own custom miniature. I'd like to know if some of the players still have those. That'd be kind of neat. And then eventually, of course, I migrated to 3rd edition. In 3rd edition, in no game I ran did I ever use any miniatures at all. I didn't see the need. I didn't want the bother of having used the miniatures, and the rules had become detailed enough to my mind that they explain the tactical arrangement of the situation, so that I could just describe it, and I'd get 90% of the time everyone would understand what I was talking about the first time out the gate. Sometimes I would have to, use a visual aid of some variety, or just kind of give a description of my hands or more detail. But most of the time, people just understood what I said when I said, you're this side, you're that side, this person's flanking. I could describe it, and because of the way the rules were written, it helped me to run the battle without having to use miniatures. It meant I didn't have to carry them with me, because a lot of time I wasn't GMing at home when I was running the 3rd edition game. I was at other people's houses. So that was important. That I didn't have to lug all these miniatures with me, or someone didn't have to house the miniatures at their residence, because we always didn't necessarily play at the same place. You know what I mean? And then, of course, I don't play 4th edition, but when 4th edition made the change from measuring things distances, instead of saying you have a movement of 30 feet, and they changed it, you have a movement of 6 squares. That's a small change for most people. Many people just shrugged it off and didn't think anything of it. For me, that was a major shift in emphasis. That said, we are going away from a realistic description of how much territory a person can cover in the time span to how much distance a miniature can cover in a time span. And that was a sea change for me. That was something I wanted nothing to do with. I didn't want to play a miniatures game, a game that was that dependent on them. Yes, people are going to tell me I'm probably talking out of my ass here, and I apologize. But it was a change I didn't like. I didn't want to get involved with the game, and I didn't. I stuck with the game I liked. So, there you go. So, there's my answer. I didn't really use any miniatures in 1st edition. Used lots and lots of miniatures in 2nd edition. Didn't use any miniatures in 3rd edition, and I never played 4th edition. So I can't help you with that one. So I hope that answered your question, and I apologize that I don't remember who asked that question today. I actually saved your email, so I will remember to film it today. So I hope that answered it, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you folks. How often have you used miniatures? Did you use miniatures in different editions of D&D in different ways? Are there role-playing games that you would play you'd never use miniatures with, and there are role-playing games that you would never play without them? I'd like to know.